It Had to Be Said podcast. We say out loud what you think in private. No topic is off limits. And in today's podcast, we are going to be talking about retail theft, right? And I try to make a lot of my podcasts very logical and, I try to not get too emotionally involved in a lot of this stuff. But this is something that's very frustrating to me, not only as a business owner, but just as a regular law abiding citizen. Here in America, we have a big problem with people just walking into the store and grabbing a handful of goods and just walking out of the stores. And employees, the employees of the stores and the business owners, they really cannot do anything because if somebody walks into your store, like, first off, let's just imagine you're a business owner. You worked for 4 or 5 years, maybe even 10 years. You worked a 9 to 5 job that you did not want to. You struggled, or you might have worked 2, 3 jobs. You struggled. You saved up your money to open up a business, whether it's a clothing store, a grocery store, whatever the case may be. You open up this business and somebody just walks in, or a group of people just walk in and they just grab handful of your goods or fill up bags full of your merchandise and they begin to walk out of the door. And if you walked up to them as a business owner or even as a staff and you knocked the crap out of them, you can possibly go to jail for assault because because the law states, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get riled up here, okay? And as I said, I'm going to try to keep my calm. But the law clearly states you were not in harm. So the person could have just grabbed your merchandise and walked out of the store. And because you were not in harm's way, and because it's something of material that could be replaced, you had no business going up and just socking them in their mouth, you know? And because of that law, you see constantly where people is not even going in big groups. You'll see just a regular individual just walk into a store, fill up bags or baskets of stuff, and just walk out. And the staff is just looking at them like they can't do anything. And if you're just a citizen standing there and you see that happen and you confront them and just sock them in the mouth, you're going to be arrested for assault because your body was not in harm's way and there was no bodily harm or risks of bodily harm happening to you because the person was just trying to steal a bunch of product and walk out the store. And it frustrates me because this really affects us all, not as only business owners, but it affects us all as citizens as well. Because when that person does that, if you have, when that person steals from the stores, and this is happening across America, these stores, they raise the prices to offset that loss. Or their insurance goes up if they're paying for, retail insurance or anything like that. And a lot of the biggest stores, they're self-insured, meaning they don't have a third-party company paying insurance because of all these crimes happening, these retail theft crimes happening, and this looting happening. If they were to pay an insurance company, they would actually have to raise the price on their goods by 50 to 100%. So a lot of these companies, they're self-insured. So if something is stolen, there's no real insurance company that's paying for them. They have to insure themselves. So how do they make that money back? They raise the prices on us. And when it gets to a point where it's really, really, really bad, they just shut down the stores. And, you know, now you have entire neighborhoods. There are no Walmarts in those areas. There are no CBSs, no Walgreens in those areas because of all of the theft that's happening. There was recently, I think about 2, 3 years ago, where people in the community, they started complaining. They said, hey, the CBSs are shutting down. And there was a Walmart that was in New York area, and it was shutting down in that area. And the people in the community was complaining. There are no grocery stores by here. We have to walk, we have to catch the bus for a few miles to go to the nearest grocery store. Because in that community, there was so much theft and people just walking in and grabbing stuff that the companies looked at it and said, the amount of merchandise that is being stolen is more than the income that's coming in. It's too much of a liability. And they walk away. And people are talking about, well, they got insurance. A lot of these big companies, they're self-insured. They're self-insured, okay? And it's sad to say it because this is another part that's very sensitive. It's only happening in Pacific communities, right? And then these communities say we're disenfranchised because we don't have any We don't have any hospitals here. We don't have any grocery stores here. We don't have this type of service in our community. Well, people, you got to take a look at it and sit there and say, well, who's robbing these places? And who's not talking and who's not snitching and who's not saying, hey, so and so robbed this place and that person needs to be arrested. Everybody's keeping their mouth shut. Everybody sees what's happening. Everybody knows who's doing it. But because you guys are keeping your mouth shut, when all of these companies start to pull out, now you're sitting here like, it's because, I'm sorry to say it's because we're black, or it's because, we're a minority community. No, it's because you guys are, because I'm gonna say you guys, but it's because of all of the things that are happening within that community. It's not to that company's advantage to be there. It's to their disadvantage to be there. Okay. And it's very frustrating to me because there's two parts to that. There's a responsibility that parents have and how they raise their kids. There's a responsibility that the community has to ensuring that people that are bringing services that that community needs, the community has a responsibility of making sure that the people within that community does not rob and steal the place. And it's also that the law has, the government, local law enforcement, not only say law enforcement, because law enforcement, what they do is really they enforce the laws that are on the book, right? And I think local governments, statewide governments, they all in the federal government, they have a responsibility to change these laws and then to say, okay, you know what? If somebody walks into your store and they just grab a handful of merchandise, if you sock them in the face, now I know it's not, I, okay, I know it's not logical, right? I know it's, well, how can I do this? I know it's not reasonable. And I know it's not something that should, I'm not going to say should. I know it's more emotional what I'm saying now. Okay. How about that? But I feel like if somebody walks into your business and they just grabbed a whole bunch of merchandise, I feel like you should be able to just tackle that person, put them on the ground, and just have them arrested. I don't think it should be a situation of, okay, well, they grabbed the merchandise and they just let them walk out because if they get hurt, the liabilities on the business. No, I feel like you grab that merchandise, you walk out, we tackle you, we pin you down, and we hand you over to the police and you get arrested. And I think people that, and I think people that do these crimes because they're so emboldened, I think these are the people that should face hard labor. And this is another podcast that I'm going to be talking about later on. Hopefully, well, later on this month, which is going to be, American jails. It's too soft. I think we need to bring back hard labor. When these guys get arrested, they're living in an AC building. They got toilet. They have 3 meals a day, and they get the shower. No, and that's us taxpayers that are paying for these criminals to live a comfortable life. Literally, you have guys that are homeless and they commit crimes because they sit there and say, "I'd rather be in jail. I get 3 meals a day. I get the shower twice a day, and I get to live in AC, get a TV, get yard time." It's like being in kindergarten all over. You know, I think American jails need to be a little bit more tougher to the point when people get locked up, when they get out, they sit there and say, I'm never going back into that hellhole again. You know, whether it's 8 hours of just physical hard labor, cracking rocks, doing whatever, factory work. But until that change, people have no fear of going to jail because for them it's kind of like vacation. And you always hear people talk about, Club Fed, which is kind of like, oh well, we committed this crime, so we're going to be in Club Fed, which is like a resort. I went to visit somebody in federal prison one time. It was in downtown Miami. The building literally had like a marble facade on the outside. I'm sorry, on the inside of the building. The lobby was marble on the inside of this prison, and the person I went to visit the person in prison. It was like up on like the eighth or ninth floor. I mean, these guys get a view of downtown Miami. They get to relax and chill, and I'm like, what the heck is this? This is not prison, man. This is like being in a freaking 4-star resort. But I'm not gonna get into it too much. But one thing I'm saying is this: if people commit a crime and they walk into a business and they take a bunch of stuff, the business should be able to tackle the person, hold them down, and have them arrested. And companies need to not shy away from that. But I think the laws also need to be changed to protect business owners to sit there and say, well, this person, they were stealing product. The staff went to tackle the person. The person resisted and fought. And at that point in time, any kind of harm that comes to that individual that was stealing the product, the company is not liable for it. The staff is not liable for it because the person was harmed in the process of being stopped from committing a crime. And I think that needs to apply all across the board. That's just my personal point of view as a citizen, as well as a business owners, because these guys who are committing all these crimes, they're causing companies' prices to go up. They're causing companies to pull out of certain communities. And I think it's just a shame. And I think the country's getting out of hand. So we need to revamp and revisit all of these laws. Once again, this is just my personal point of view. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. I'm not trying to convince you of it. This podcast is made as a way for me to express my opinion to other people that are out there, whether you're a like-minded person like me, or you're just someone who never even thought about that particular subject from my personal perspective, and you can learn something new or see things from a different perspective. You guys have an awesome day. Remember, we post new podcasts every Tuesday and Thursday.